Hey guys, it's Bridget with San Diego Seed Company, and today I'm going to be covering a topic that is very commonly misunderstood. I'm going to be talking all about heat mats. What do you need to know? How do you need to use them? And how can you not make the most common mistakes with heat mats? So I know you're probably thinking, how can this be misunderstood? You take a heating mat, you put it underneath the plants, they grow quicker, your seeds germinate quicker. Well, it's not actually as easy as that. And it's something that's commonly misunderstood, and we get questions about it all the time. So in this video, I'm going to cover what you need to know so you can use the heating mat correctly, when you need to use it, and not when you don't. All right, let's start with the basics here. What is a heating mat and what does it do? Well, basically it's just a small mat that is meant to be used in a wet, humid environment. So it's important to know that this is different from a heating mat you would use like on your body or in any other situation. It's meant for a greenhouse, underneath trays, or using inside with your seeds. Basically what this does is it heats up to a certain temperature. There are different specifications on different mats, but the idea is that it's warm, and if you were here with me, you could feel it. No, it feels so good. It's so warm. It's so nice. It heats up, and you put it underneath a tray so that you can warm up the soil from the bottom up so that you get quicker germination rates. Now, in zone 9 and 10, heating mats are not as critical as they are in other zones where it's really cold and you've got to raise the temperature to get seeds to germinate. Now, luckily for us, it's really easy to remember because those are warm season crops. Those are crops that like to grow in warm soil during a warm part of the year. And so the heating mat can really help to warm up the soil and boost the germination rate. It's important to note that the heating mat, you can get away with not using it, but let me just give you an example of what happens if you don't use it. So I've got some basil here that I germinated without a heating mat in my greenhouse, and I started them on, January 19th. This is as far as they've gotten. They have grown so incredibly slow. In fact, at one point, I was kind of having like a existential crisis, thinking like, do I even know how to start seeds? Because they weren't germinating, and I know that they're good seed, but they were just germinating so slowly because it was too cold in the greenhouse and the soil was too cold. Now, that's almost a month because today is February 13th, okay? That is way too slow for these to be growing. And just to keep in mind, even the difference between a couple degrees, that's all the seeds need to hasten their germination and to germinate quicker. Now, why would you want these to germinate quicker? Well, it's not just about your time and your patience, because it's really annoying to come out here and be like looking at them and they're not doing anything, which I do every single morning, of course. But the longer they stay in this very small form and the colder the soil is, the more likely they're going to be susceptible to things like dampening off and just other issues that you have when you have very small seedlings or seeds that are struggling to germinate. For us, we want our seed and our tray to germinate as quickly and as uniform as possible so that we have everything ready and we can get it out to the farm or into the garden quickly. So the heating mat really makes that happen a lot quicker and a lot more evenly in your trays. Okay, so I had said warm season crops, and that is true. If you're the kind of person that just likes general information, warm season crops are going to benefit from your heating mats. But most of you probably don't have the space, the room, and gosh, it would get really expensive to buy 15 heating mats. I only keep a few on hand because I use heating mats for crops that really benefit from that. And that is things like peppers, tomatoes, basil can really help, especially if it's cold. Eggplant, so your solanaceae really love that extra heat. And those are the crops that can germinate a lot quicker. Now let's say you can only afford one heating mat, or you only want one heating mat. If you have one crop that you have to use a heating mat for, it's peppers. We've got tons of videos, we'll link to it in the description of this, about starting pepper seeds. And if the temperature isn't warm enough, it can take like 3 weeks for your pepper seeds to germinate. Man, that's a long time to keep the watering just perfect and to baby them, to get them growing. The heating mat can really break that time maybe in half if you're using a heating mat that's specific for your seedlings and keeping it on the whole time. Okay, so let's answer some common questions that we get about heating mats. Well, number one, just to, like Captain Obvious here, but just in case, it goes underneath the tray because you want the heat to go from the bottom up, and that's going to help warm up the soil. A little bit of science here: the warmer the soil, the more active the microbes are in the soil, and the seed basically responds to the warm environment and goes, oh, it's spring, it's time to germinate, and it pops through the soil. Okay, so seedling heating mat goes on the bottom, and that's what warms it up to get the seeds to germinate quicker. Now, a next common question that we get is, well, when do I put it on and when do I take it off? There's a little bit of wiggle room here depending on what you need. The seedling heating mat goes underneath your tray the moment that the seeds are planted. You can see here I've got a bunch of stuff, and I only have one that has a little humidity dome on it, and I've got the heating mat on it, and I just started these. Oh no, one of my little guys fell over. That's okay. I just started these a couple days ago, so they haven't germinated yet, but these are all peppers and tomatoes. So that is why I have both a humidity dome to keep that warm, humid air in here, and the heating mat on, and I'm gonna leave it on until I get full germination. And if I don't need this mat for a different tray, I'm gonna leave it on at least until I see the first set of true leaves. At that point, this crop is big enough and it's going to acclimate to the cooler temperatures of the greenhouse. That's also going to be a couple weeks from now, where the greenhouse will naturally be warmer, and I can move that mat to a different tray if I need to use it. That heating mat does not need to stay underneath those seedlings the whole time they're growing in that tray. A way to remember it is, you're going to move it out into the garden where the temperatures fluctuate. That plant can absolutely handle a little bit of fluctuation here and there. Again, this is for zone 9 and 10. If you're in really colder climates, then that advice is going to change a little bit. But for here, it really is just until you see the first set of true leaves, and then you can use the heating mat elsewhere. Okay, so quick rundown of some considerations is, if you're using a heating mat, the soil is naturally going to dry out quicker because it's warmer. If you have a humidity dome, that'll help a little bit, but you're going to have to check it more often and make sure that it is well moistened so that your seeds can germinate. Also, when you're using a heating mat that is designed for the greenhouse or indoor use underneath the trays, it's much safer than using something that you're not supposed to use, obviously. So an example of what not to do with the heating mat is, and I do get this very common question or comment from our customers, they'll use a heating mat on something like, say, lettuce in the spring where it's already really warm. Lettuce is a cool season crop, so it doesn't really benefit from a heating mat. Unless you're in zone 3 where it's literally like 40 degrees below outside and you're trying to start the seeds, maybe they need a little bit of extra warmth. But general rule of thumb, it's warm season crops that benefit from the warmth at their feet from the heating mat that helps them germinate quicker. Now, for those of you across the United States and outside of zone 9 and 10, if you look on the back of a seed pack, it'll say ideal soil temp. Okay, and this is just a range, but if that range is, if your soil is well below that range, then a heating mat is going to help get the soil within that range and help the germination happen quicker and more evenly in your trays. All right, so we would love to hear from you. What things do you put on heating mats, and how do they help you in the garden or in the greenhouse? Now, please make sure you subscribe to our channel so that we can help you grow the best in zone 9 and 10. But we would love to hear from you how you use a heating mat, and if you have any tips and tricks on how we can use them better. So remember that heating mats really help for crops that need heat when they're germinating. And luckily for us in zone 9 and 10, we clump those together in crops called warm season crops. So you can always just remember that warm season crops like to be warm, and they might need a little bit of heat at their feet to get them to germinate quicker. This doesn't help on cool season crops that don't need that extra heat. So save time, energy, and money by using heating mats where it matters and getting the best and quickest germination rates possible for your warm season crops. Okay, so if you're convinced that heating mats are really going to help you in your seed starting game, you can pick up heating mats from us on our website. And you can pick up heating mats just about anywhere. I know a habit of most people is to go straight to Amazon and purchase from Amazon, and that's fine. You totally can. But you also can support a small local seed company by purchasing heating mats from us and helping us grow our seed company so we can help you grow your garden.